Okay, now that I have my completed color wheel over here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to work with different color mixing techniques over here as well, including some tinting and shading as such. I accidentally got a little bit of violet here, so I'll get that figured out here shortly. But what you want to do is you want to just take a ruler and line it up and just trace the thickness of the ruler is all I'm doing. So I'm lining it up on a previous line. And that's going to give me some different swatches that I can work with. And each one of these is going to give us a different practice technique. And I'm going to leave the very top area open for more experimentation. Whoops. Okay, so what I'm going to start with, let's see, since I have violet up in here, I might as well just go ahead and go with the violet there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add black on this side and white on this side. So it looks again like you can't see very well. I'm going to try to zoom in a little bit better. Hopefully you can see that. I don't know. A little bit better. So adding black here, violet down here. I think I'll go ahead and do a blue here. And I think I'm just going to switch it up a little bit and go black on this side. And I'm going to go white on this side. So let's see. I'm going to go ahead and try something with some of these colors as well. So I'm going to take my red and I'm going to go with black on this side and white on this side. So this is about tinting and shading different colors. Here I'm going to go with yellow, and I think on this side I'm going to add black, and on this side I'm going to add white. And so that's going to show what happens to those different colors as we do add the white and the black to it, which are not colors at all, they're just values. You're going to see that it's going to change the purity of your colors quite a bit because we have no white and black on this side. What we're going to do down here is we're going to do an analagous spectrum. And so we're going to start with yellow on this side, and we're going to progress over to red on this side. So that means we're going to add these colors together in kind of a spectrum, so to speak. So colors that are analogous are next to each other on the color wheel, and they look good together because they have a lot in common with one another. Like we couldn't make orange without yellow and red, and each one of these has a different level of yellow and red. So when we include yellow, red, and all the different oranges together, it's a harmonious color pattern. What I'm going to do down here is complementary. Complementary colors are right across from each other on the color wheel. So if I point my yellow to my violet, I've got a complement. If I point my orange to my blue, I've got a complement. And if I point my green to my red, I've got a complement. They're opposite colors. And so we're going to see what happens when we mix them in the middle here. So what you want to do is you just want to pick two different complementary colors. So in this case, I think I'm going to go with, let's try blue and orange. So I'm going to start with blue on this side. I'm going to get orange going on that side. Okay, cool. So it's a good idea to use painter's tape if you're worried about painting a nice straight line. And so what I like to do with painter's tape though is maybe add a little bit of like lint or something to it, like from my pants. That way it's easier for me to pull that back off of there. So I'm just gonna like start with my violet here. I'm just gonna go across like that. Same thing here. If you don't have painter's tape, no big deal. All you've got to do is use regular masking tape and just add a lot more lint to it as such. Okay. So first thing I'm going to do is use up the rest of my violet that I have in here, right? So I'm going to go ahead and just paint it both ways from the middle. Like, I don't want to push it this way because what's going to happen is it's going to creep underneath that tape. We want it to be nice and clean. I'm going to add more to that because I want to be able to mix with the white and the black so that we can kind of look at how that changes the purity of the color. It's a good idea that when you're doing this, let's see, what is it going to do? Black on this side? It's a good idea that when you're doing this, that if you're going to add black and you already have like a color in that, just go ahead and dip it straight in the black. And then really my goal here is to try to get a nice smooth transition from that violet into that black. So what I'm going to do now is pull up a good deal of violet and place it right in there. At this point, I would go ahead and clean my brush, because I've got way too much color in my brush. It's already influencing a lot of the other values that I'm trying to get out of this color. So like, I like to dry it off really well, and I like to flatten out my brush too so that I can kind of get a good gradation in here. So I'm basically working the violet into the black. I don't want to drag that black over into the violet. I want to be able to see a good spectrum. Sometimes I'll come back over with the clean side and I'll just get a nicer blend in there. It's okay to leave brush strokes in this case. But if you can, get it nice and smooth, and hopefully it'll come out really well for you. Okay, I'm going to clean my brush one more time. And a lot of my violet's already drying out over here, so it looks like I need to add a little bit more. And so I'm just going to go ahead and refresh this violet. So we want to do this with at least one secondary color. So if you don't want to do it with violet, that's fine. You can go ahead and do it with any other secondary color like green or orange. But I want you to try it with one secondary color minimum, and then we're going to try it with all of the primaries as well. So it's important to clean your brush out really well when you're getting white, or to use a different brush, because we don't want to taint that white. And it takes a lot of white to change a color like violet. And so I may have to add quite a bit. You can see the brush strokes a lot better when it comes to this white because violet's such a dark color. Over here the brush strokes are much harder to see. So once I've gotten that kind of painted on, I'm going to go ahead and clean my brush out again, dry it off again, and I'm just going to work on feathering that out and kind of getting it nice and smooth. And if I feel like I need to lighten it up or add more violet, I'll certainly go for that and do that. But again, I just want a nice gradation, just lightly working my brush over the surface. These painting skills will make you a more confident person when it comes to teaching art lessons, but also anytime you're teaching something, you want to spend time practicing. Most people that I talk to when they take this course, they're so worried about the art aspect of it, like they think that art is magical. It's really not that magical. It's quite similar to anything else where you just need to practice quite a bit. Okay, so this is wet, so I'm not really going to jump to the next one. What I'll probably do is go down here and demonstrate these. It's better to let this dry first and then move down and tape off some of the other stuff. So I think I'm going to go down to analagous and give that a shot. So again, I chose for analagous my yellow to red spectrum. Usually what you do for analagous colors, you just pick two primary colors, and you work to develop as many intermediates in between there as you can so that you have a nice soft gradation. So whether it's red to blue, yellow to green, it's up to you, but you need to try something in the analagous spectrum. So I'm doing yellow to red, and for this one you want a couple of brushes probably, and again you want to make sure they're super clean because yellow can be tainted a lot by other colors. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pull a lot of yellow. Again, knowing what I knew before about how weak yellow is compared with red, I know that I really need to add a lot of yellow, and I won't need to use very much red at all. But I'm going to paint that over the halfway mark. That way I can start to work that red into it. Kind of looks like my paint's a little bit dry, so I'm going to add just a little water to that so I can smooth it over better. And that's another way that you can smooth tempera paints, is by using it kind of like watercolor. So now I'm going to go for that red, and I'm going to build it up on this side pretty heavily. Once I feel like I have a lot of red in there, I'm just going to start to smooth that across my yellows until I get some good oranges in there. And you can see I pushed a little bit far right now. So I'm just going to add a little water to that and just take my brush and try to blend that. Kind of dry brush it a little bit. I might go back and pull a little bit more yellow here so that I can make that yellow more dominant, and we can hopefully get like a better orange out of the deal. There we go. Pretty satisfied with that. That's looking pretty good. Notice when I'm brushing too that I'm making sure that I brush in like a very similar angle. Like I try not to go a bunch of different directions. If I pick an angle, I try to stick with it. Last thing I want to do is clean up this yellow down here just a little bit. So again, I'm going to pull out some of this, and I'm just going to reinvigorate that yellow again, make it nice and bright, and then kind of get a good blend out from this side. You'll find that temperas behave a little bit more like oils. They're not quite as fast and permanent as acrylics. For the record, it's a good idea to pull your tape up while it's wet. It just seems to give you a much cleaner look. Okay, next up, I'm going to go for one of my primaries, red, black, and white, since these are still drying. Now, I'm probably not going to demonstrate everything. I will take a photograph of this and post it so that you can see my results. But once you get the idea of tinting and shading down, and tinting is where you add white to a color, and shading is where you add black to a color. It's kind of weird that we call them tinted windows. They should probably be shaded windows, but once you've got that down, that whole tinting and shading process, usually you just have to tweak it a little bit with each color. Like I can tell you, your yellow is going to be pretty interesting. It always is. It shows a lot about what black does to a color, about how it's less powerful often to incorporate that. Okay, so again, I'm going to start with like healthy red in the middle, and I'm just going to stretch it out and smooth it out. I'm going to add a lot to the middle here. That way I can kind of start dissipating on the edges. Okay, just going to dry off my brush, kind of clean it out a little bit. Add some black on this side. And again, I want it nice and dark here. If you need to go back and get more red, go get more red so that you can see the color better. So my black's starting to dominate my color quite a bit over here, so I feel like I have to clean my brush, dry it off. Oh man, making a mess. And then I can start to fade this a little bit more. Shade it and fade it. There we go. Try to get that a little bit more smooth. Once I get to that black end, now it's going to really start getting dark. You can see that like I have to be careful over here. Okay, time for white, and what that means is I got to make sure that my brush is super, super clean, because again, it doesn't take much to dirty up your white. Start with a lot of white on the end, and you're going to see it's going to be real easy to pull this red into the white. A lot of people think of pink as being a bright color, but looking at this quality of red that's been added with white, it's not nearly as bold as this in the middle, and that's really what this practice is about. This practice is about showing you how we don't necessarily always have to use white and black to shade. In fact, I rarely use white and black unless I really need to. Okay, so at this point, I'd wait on all this stuff to dry. I'm going to try my blue to orange complement. I'm going to try my yellow, tinted and shaded, my blue, shaded and tinted here. And then again, I will post this image so you can see what it looks like. Out here, I'm going to do an experiment with a lot of my leftover colors, and so I just want to add like a healthy amount of a primary, a healthy amount of this primary here. I'm just going to kind of blend those together just to practice blending. I want to try to get the whole spectrum in if I can. That'd be really cool. So I've got some red to some violet going on. Clean out my brush. I'm going to add a little bit more blue right here and bring that blue back, get it nice and bright. Try to go a single direction. So it just so happens that I have some leftover green, so I'm going to go ahead and drop some of that in here and get kind of a blue-green spectrum coming over. Add a little bit more green to the edge, and then I'm going to influence it with yellow. Start bringing that yellow-green back. So kind of using